Hey, yo, what's up, my people? How are you guys today? Happy podcast day. It's Nicole. I hope today is a good day. And if today is a crap day, I hope that we can spend a few minutes together and make it just a little bit brighter. So I have a really great interview for you today. I was in New York City this past weekend doing some fun stuff, doing some work stuff, doing some visiting with old college friends for my dear friend's daughter's bat mitzvah, and one of the work things I got to do when I was in the city is I got to interview Lisa Schlosberg. And Lisa has just graduated from NYU with her master's in social work, and she will be my assistant at Omega this summer, my total right-hand man, helping me get everything done for all of you guys, and also providing any emotional support that people need on the sidelines as the week goes on. She is amazing, understands this work so on point, which you're going to hear when we talk. We met up at the very fabulous and fancy, and I'm saying that with a huge wink, the Pod Hotel in NYC. And it's not that it's not a great hotel, but it is like being in a hostel. It's these little tiny dorm rooms where I was staying. And she came to my hotel room, and we just had so much fun doing the pod in the pod, and just talking about this work and how this work applies to chronic obesity and body image and the relationship that we have with food, which is something that people are always reaching out to me about. And just seeing what Lisa's going to bring to Omega this summer, which is going to be amazing. So let me tell you a little bit about Lisa. She gave me her bio, and it's so awesome. I'm just going to read it to you guys because I couldn't do better. Summarizing it myself since she knows all her stuff. I met Lisa last summer at the John Gabriel retreat, and she was speaking to his audience after having overcome morbid obesity in childhood, and her story is just amazing. And then when she found me and my work, she was able to apply this work to her IBS. And another thing that people ask me a lot is, does this work apply to IBS and things like that? Because I usually hear people talk about pain, and they're not sure if irritable bowel and things like that qualify as TMS, and they absolutely, positively, 1,000,000% do. So Lisa's bio, she is a certified personal trainer, an integrative nutrition holistic health coach, a licensed master of social work, congrats, Lisa, she just passed her exam, and a public speaker. After a childhood of morbid obesity, losing 150 pounds in college taught her about the importance of mental and emotional health. After realizing both overeating and undereating had been means of coping with unexpressed emotion, Lisa grew passionate about helping others bridge the gap between mental and physical health. And this is one thing I hear her say a lot. If the biggest problem you have with food, for example, is that you're an emotional eater, it's not a problem you have with food. It's a question about how you're coping with your emotions. And I, hallelujah, second that. She now conducts both in-person and online coaching sessions, providing guidance as her clients connect the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and social dots of their own lives. Her mission is to help both men and women struggling with their relationship with food, eating, and their body, and become aligned with, attuned to, and understand loving themselves throughout the lifelong process of growth, transformation, and evolution. So Lisa is just such an awesome addition to our Omega team, and also just to my life, because I have never used my particular TMS laser on emotional eating per se. And I think that it is so on point, so spot on for the kind of work that I am doing, that we are doing, that you are doing. And she brings just such wisdom and such a clarity to the message. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy meeting her this summer if you're joining us at Omega. So anyway, just a couple of housekeeping things. First, I want to say that in case you don't know, we're getting closer to the deadline. Sign up for the Omega Retreat by June 15th, and you receive the deluxe version of my online course, Freedom from Chronic Pain, absolutely free. That means you get the download version. You could keep it forever, and it's a really great preface to coming and working with all of us this summer at Omega. So do get yourself, if you can, together to sign up by then, because not only would I love you guys to be able to do the course before you get to Omega, but also I'm really interested to know how many people we're going to have in the room so I can start setting up my mind for how we're going to all be together this summer. And it's going to be such a nice group. I already know so many people. They've reached out to me that are coming, and I just think it's going to be really beautiful, all of us there together. So I'm not going to say too much more about this interview other than the fact that I have tremendous respect for Lisa and her intelligence, her insight, and her ability to explain her experience and connect the dots in her own life. And I feel privileged to know her. And with that, I give you Lisa Schlosberg. Hi, everybody. I am here today with Lisa Schlosberg, and we are in a very small, cozy hotel room in New York City. We are hoping that nobody decides to re-shampoo the carpets in the hallway, which is what was happening 5 minutes ago, and we will actually be able to be with you today unfettered by loud, crazy noises. So I'm here with Lisa today. She's very dear to me. She and I met last summer at the John Gabriel retreat at the Omega Institute, and we will definitely talk more about that. But what was really beautiful for me about meeting Lisa is she had her own journey of wellness way before she met me, and then had some awakenings in her story once she learned about my work, and it has led us to work together, and I know that we're going to be working together well into the future. So I'm going to just hand it over to Lisa and let her tell you her story, and as usual, we'll see where it goes. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Am I good here?
Yeah,
okay.
Here, you can cozy up.
Okay,
there you go.
Hello, podcast. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really honored. I think the world of Nicole and her work. So I will start with kind of just the beginning, I guess, which is I was very overweight my whole childhood. That's where it starts. So I was kind of perpetually gaining weight every year. And I was just over 300 pounds when I was 17. And during my sophomore year of college, I rapidly lost 150 pounds through extreme dieting, a ton of exercise. There was really no mind-body connection. It was just a matter of, I know what I have to do to lose weight, and I did it. And then things got really interesting for me when I hit my lowest weight, because at that point, I remember speaking to a nutritionist. I was confused why I couldn't lose like the last 10 pounds or something. And she was the one to explain to me that I had to actually stop weight loss. It was really unhealthy. I lost my period because I was so malnourished and my body was starving. And what I had to do, instead of eat less and exercise more, like I was always told, I had to now eat more and exercise less. And so that for me is where it became a mind-body story, not a body story, because as soon as I tried to eat a little bit more and exercise a little bit less, emotionally, I became a complete disaster. I was trying to restore my body from being pretty sick, but that's when the emotional part got really difficult. And it became pretty clear with some time and some therapy that food and eating had always been my way of dealing with emotions. And it was the way that I coped with everything growing up, was I would eat about it. And so I was the kid who was very popular and happy and outgoing. You never saw me sad about anything. Nothing was a big deal. Nothing hurt. Nothing scared me. Anything. I was impenetrable to pain. And that's because I was eating it. And then I was dieting, and under-eating psychologically worked the same as overeating. And so it wasn't until I had to kind of find balance physically that all of this stuff came up mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And the way I explained it was like my therapist at the time said the floodgates were opened, because I had been seeing her for years saying nothing is a big deal and I don't really care about anything. And at around that time when I was trying to eat a little bit more, and I couldn't use food or restricting food to cope with emotion, then I was going into therapy crying about everything. And when I say everything, I mean like the rain and the news and like homeless people and babies.
I relate.
And like literally everything.
Homeless people and babies.
Like all of it. Just all the things, like weddings, commercials, like anything that could trigger an emotion. I was crying all the time. And it was really strange because I had no experience with emotion. I had experienced eating emotion, but I had no experience actually feeling anything. And so it became a story of emotional health that all began with physical health. And so that's kind of just that's the beginning of the story.
That's pre us meeting.
That's all before we met. So I had kind of. Should I just keep going?
Yeah, okay. Keep going, and I'll interrupt you.
Okay,
not to
so basically, I spent a couple years figuring out that I didn't want to overeat. I didn't want to undereat. I wanted to be at a healthy place physically. And for me, that had nothing to do with diet and exercise. It had everything to do with feeling feelings. And like I always say, if I don't feel my feelings, I eat them. And if I eat my feelings, I don't feel them. And so that's how, so that's what I began kind of working on. Was I was going to therapy, really, really dealing with my stuff. I was journaling a lot because writing always helped me cope. And I just kind of went on this journey of like, all right, so if I don't want to be 300 pounds again, what I have to do is feel pain and express it and verbalize it and deal with it. And what are healthy coping skills that I can use that are not eating and dieting? And so I started doing things like meditating and visualizing and yoga, and I was very skeptical. I wasn't like willing to do any of these things. It was just kind of like, if I don't bring my stress down, I'll eat it, and I don't want to keep living in this pattern. So that's what I did for a couple years, was really started focusing on how do I cope emotionally while also putting very much effort into not dieting, not getting on the scale, not counting what I was eating, because I realized that the same way food for me was an addictive way of coping with emotion, so was dieting.
Right.
And so both of those things I had to be abstinent, so to speak, from using food and eating in an emotional way. And so that's what I did. And I started, the more I focused on my emotional and mental health, the less I had to focus on my physical health. And so like I stopped getting on the scale. I stopped focusing on my body. And the more I focus on my mental health, like now it's been 6 years of me maintaining my weight loss, but that's not because I focus on what I eat. It's because I know it's emotional. And so that still is all kind of before we met.
But let me say that even though that's before we met, and I think this is the reason that when Lisa and I met, we meshed so immediately, is because everything she's saying right now to me can be translated in terms of Dr. Sarno's work as the symptom imperative. So the symptom imperative was the food, and then it moved to the exercising, and then it moved to the restricting. And then when all of those things were taken away and Lisa just had to feel her feelings, that's when the real work began, which is a lot of times analogous to the pain, right? So there's back pain and it's all you can think about. And then your symptom imperative, instead of exercise, it's going to different doctors and trying different treatments and trying different alternative treatments and seeking and being on Dr. Google and all the things that we do to ourselves. And then when we finally hit that final roadblock and we say, shit, like there's nothing else physically that I can do for myself, that's hopefully when you can open yourself to this work. And so essentially, that is at the point where I met Lisa, and I was guest instructing at this John Gabriel retreat, and I heard her story, And I actually, at the time, didn't even know that you had any lingering physical problems. I just looked at her as like this huge success story, and I was like, "Oh, good for her." Wash your hands of it. She's done. Which I tend to be naive like that, though. I tend to be like, "Oh, this person's better now," which I do the same thing to myself. And then I have to realize that life is a journey, and it's not over till you die, and it's not even over when you die, and blah blah blah. But anyway. What was really awesome is when Lisa reached out to me after initially we had met and said, "Hey, I think I want to do your online course for my IBS." And I was like, I didn't even know you had IBS. So talk to all of us a little bit about kind of how that revelation went and what happened after that.
Yeah. The cool thing about like when Nicole and I met, just like she said, was I remember I was giving a speech, and I still remember like the slide that came up that said something I say all the time is you can't solve an emotional problem with a physical solution. And I say that regarding diets, exercise, weight loss surgery, for example. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was saying is what I learned is this was all emotional. And that's when Nicole like stood up in the back and gave me like a rock star sign.
Yeah.
But so we were kind of meeting, like we were both saying the same thing in a lot of ways. And I was so psyched about all of her work because it all made so much sense to me. And so it's funny that you say like, I didn't even know you had IBS, because I wanted to live as if I didn't have IBS.
Right.
Like I was really at a place where I thought I got it. Like I was like, okay, this is emotional. I have to deal with my issues and blah, blah, blah. And so I figured it out. Like I'm maintaining my weight loss. Okay. But that's when I met Nicole and realized I did not have it figured out. And there was like this whole other layer. And so at first, like just hearing you speak, everything made sense. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't agree more. It was like one of those, like every single thing you said, I felt in my bones. And I was like, okay, I know that this is the truth with a capital T is the way you put it, right?
So like that's it.
And so we did like a little bit of journal speak at the retreat. And I was still, so just to go back a little bit, like I met you last summer. Mm-hmm. I have had IBS since 2014.
Okay.
So it's been 5 years now.
Yeah. Of
me. First, I did like the Western medicine thing. I was going to like a bunch of different doctors. I went to the ER a couple times. Mm-hmm. There were a few times where, it was like, we're super going to find this answer. Like, we got this. I went to alternative medicine. I went to the amount of stool samples I had to do for the, like, it was just like there was so much that I tried for the first year, 2 years. And then I started going through like waves of like, I'm going to really try this. And then nothing worked and no one could help. And I felt so defeated and so just like, I'm going to live in denial of this. Like, I'm just going to go on with my life. There's certain things I shouldn't eat. And I always have to go to the bathroom at like inconvenient times. I remember like the senior year of college, I couldn't go to the library because like I never knew what my body was going to do. And going to class was hard. Like it just became
so upsetting,
so draining and exhausting. And so by the time we met, this had already been going on for years. And I was kind of like, I don't know, it'll take care of itself or something, maybe. But I hated it. I mean, if you asked me to talk about my IBS and how hard it was for me, really. Mm-hmm. Like, I could go on and on and on, but I would live as if that weren't really true.
Right.
So then we met, mm-hmm. and I started to really think about, every single time you said this could work for IBS. Me years ago would have been like, there's no way. I used to think, the same way I thought about diet and exercise. It's all physical. This is all a physical thing. But the more I learned through my own story and through my own experiences that actually everything I thought was a physical problem was an emotional problem, why should IBS be an exception?
And let me clarify something Lisa said just now so people don't take it the wrong way. It's not that you don't have a physical problem. You have a physical problem that the genesis of that physical problem is an emotional repression. Because that's something, and I'm not doing this to correct you, Lisa. I'm doing this because I think the way you think, but I think when people are scared and struggling and desperate, which I know so many people out there are, I hear from you guys every day, many times a day, I think that anything could scare them into saying, this actually isn't me that they're talking about. Like, to identify out is what I call it. And I'm going to explain to you that no matter what you're experiencing, if you're a person whose light is going on right now because you have IBS, or you're a person who has migraines or fibromyalgia or any all over body pain or anxiety or OCD, however this lands for you, your problem is as real as real, capital R real. But the issue with solving our problems, the solution-based approach of a Western medicine, is we alter the physical part of your body. And if it's IBS, we alter it through altered diet or supplements or different alternative treatments or medications. We're going to alter that gut area of your body in order to fix the gut. But the problem is that is basically pointing your weapon in the wrong direction. And when you're pointing your weapon in the wrong direction in a fight, you're really going to never get anywhere. And the solution is an emotional solution. So as I say often, the pain is not in your head, but the solution is not in your body. And that is something that keeps people sick for a very long time. So it sounds like, Lisa, you started to realize that your old thinking about weight and weight loss and weight maintenance had just transferred into your thinking about wellness and about physical issues with the body. So what happened then?
So, yeah, and I mean, I always say, something that I always say, similar to what you always say, is for me, if the biggest problem you have with food is that you're an emotional eater, it's not a problem you have with food.
Right.
It's a question about how you're coping with your emotions. And so I think it's the same kind of thing, is we just kind of transfer it to a physical thing, because at least we can manipulate that in a way we know how.
Right.
Especially with
feels
dieting.
Safer. It feels safer.
And it's control. Like for me, it was like, I can control this. I have no idea what my gut is going to... I can't control the way my gut responds, but I can control what I can put in my body.
Right.
And it's easier to go outside.
And if it worked...
Right. Right.
Wouldn't it be great? But it doesn't.
Right.
And that's when people hit the wall.
Right. So yeah. So I remember thinking, like, okay, I don't want to keep acting as if this is definitely a physical thing, because a lot has happened to me that I would never believe in before.
Right.
And this whole kind of like, just suspend your disbelief. What if it were true? And what if I could journal my way out of this? Like, what if that could really happen? And I really didn't like super believe it at first, but I was really willing to try, because I felt like anything is really possible. But then I also started to think about like the timeline of how this all worked. When did this start? And then it started to make a lot more sense. And I know that that's something like you tell people to also think about.
Yeah, I do.
Is like what actually was going on in your life when all this physical pain started.
Absolutely.
And so when I started to hear that message of like, not only do you have IBS, but like, when did it start? How did this happen? It really like solidified this idea, because for me, the story was, so I lost 150 pounds my sophomore year of college. Then by the time I went back junior year, I was still like afraid to eat everything. I was still exercising every single day, counting every single calorie. And then the second semester of my junior year, so I was back at school for a few months before I went abroad, and I went on semester at sea. So I was living on a ship for 4 months, traveling all through really the whole world. We left from California, went through Asia, Africa, into Europe in 4 months. And this was at a time when... And so basically what happened was I left semester at sea, and my stomach was never the same. Like I just have, it was awful on the ship, but it was kind of one of those like, oh, everyone has stomach issues on the ship. You're in Africa, like just pop a Pepto-Bismol and it'll be okay. Like it was like, that was normal. It was like almost a rite of passage to like have diarrhea. So it wasn't a thing during the semester. And then everyone went back to normal and my life was never the same.
Right.
So when I started to then think about, how did this start? Like, when did this start? And at first I would think physically, like all the doctors I went to asked me that. And I was always a physical conversation of like, well, I was quarantined. This is TMI, sorry, podcast, but I was quarantined on the ship with diarrhea for like 24 hours or something. Like it was like a real head to toe illness. I was so sick when we were after Ghana. And so a lot of the doctors were like, well, that's probably where it started. At first, I was actually diagnosed with post-infectious IBS, which is at some point you had an infection and now it's still, like, whatever, maybe it's still in there or something. They did so many parasite tests, blah, blah, blah. But so the conversation of how did this start was always physical.
I want to add something here because I think what you're saying is really important for people with all different kinds of issues. So often we have something happen to us. So like, let's say a high school athlete blows out her knee, okay? And then she gets the reconstructive surgery, which of course is necessary, and she's better. And I'm putting that in air quotes, she's better. And then she's 35 years old, and it's been 20 years since she blew out her knee, and she's always had chronic knee problems. And every doctor she goes to says, oh, well, when you were 15 playing soccer, you blew out your knee, so it's probably still from that injury. And we are so used to, as a society, accepting that message from doctors. And this is not doctor bashing, because I honestly think that most doctors out there are out for our best interest and are doing their best. But this has become such a ubiquitous thing to say to people, which is, you had this thing happen to you, which was a real thing. I mean, everything is real, but which was an acute incident, which probably Lisa did have some sort of an infection. God knows, you're traveling the world, it can happen. But it does not account for your quote-unquote pain, whatever your pain shows up as, once your miraculous human body, which it is, has a chance to properly heal. And Dr. Sarno used to talk about this all the time. You break the biggest bone in your body, it takes 6 weeks to heal if properly set, done. You should not be having chronic physical problems years and years after something happens, but so often when people contact me, that's the first thing I hear. Well, I've always had the bad hip ever since the blah, blah, blah. I got headaches as a child and my mother always got headaches, so I'm just a headache person. This is the normal that we accept as normal, and then our nervous system and our brain takes that well-tread neural pathway, and our expectations are set as we are a headache person, and of course when we get headaches we decide that that's normal. And so all of that kind of stuff needs to be challenged. And so it's interesting, and I do this every single time with my podcast. I don't know the stories I'm going to hear. And I love that I'm here. I didn't even know the story with Lisa. And I love that I'm hearing this because it's a great opportunity to say to everyone out there, this is what doctors are going to tell you, and you do not have to go that path. So continue. So the doctor said to you, so this probably was started at that point, and you probably believed, now I'm a person that has this problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, totally. And I thought there were so many times I felt so angry that a bunch of people got sick in Africa. Like, why am I going to live with this for the rest of my life?
Right.
And I was pretty convinced that that was true, which is why the senior year of college, I think this really caused a lot of like depression almost. Like, I was really like, this is going to be my life. How am I ever going to sleep in a bed with another person? Like, this is going to be forever.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do? So I did. I accepted that it was physical. All the conversations about it had always been physical. But then when I started to think, okay, if it's not a physical answer, and it was kind of this like, I don't know what's out there psychologically, but just what if it wasn't physical? Mm-hmm. Think about it through that lens. And so then I started to think about, how did this start psychologically speaking? I'm not allowed to think about the physical symptoms. I mean, the physical origin. But if I could think about this through the psychological lens, the spiritual lens, what am I going to find? And that was like a question that I hadn't really been asking before. And I think I was also afraid to ask, because that's a lot scarier.
That's right.
So that's when I started to think about it. And then what occurred to me was I remember Ghana. I remember my experience in Ghana. And I remember that the last day we were there. So we were there for like 5 or 6 days. And a lot of people on semester at sea, I hope there are some people out there who are listening to this who know what semester at sea is like. Pretty much everyone on that ship at some point in that semester has almost like a breaking point.
Right.
Because we're seeing a lot of really hard shit around the world, like India, Cambodia, like really tough stuff. And I remember my last day in Ghana, I called my parents. I didn't go off the ship because, and it depends where you go. I had a great experience for the most part, but it was very aggressive. It was very violent. It was scary and sad. It was really sad. And at this point, I had experiences in Cambodia, in India, in a lot of these countries that you don't really get to process anything. Yeah. Like you're on the ship, off the ship, on, off, going all over the world. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But my last day in Ghana, I remember calling my parents from the ship and just having like a complete meltdown. And having this kind of revelation that has never, ever gone away of everything is unfair.
Yeah.
The whole world is unfair.
Injustice of human
like
experience.
I am this like wealthy, white, privileged student on this ship traveling the world, and these people can't feed their families. Like, why? Like nothing is fair. And that's what Semester at Sea was teaching me. That's what travel teaches us, like around the world. And so that's what I started to really struggle with. And so I remember this moment, like this really, really pivotal experience in Ghana, which really was a whole semester experience. But that is what I found when I asked the question, where did this start psychologically? Because then it started to make sense to me that if I zoom out a little bit further from just Semester at Sea, the first 18 years of my life, the only coping mechanism I had was food and eating and denial. Mm-hmm. And then it switched to not eating and exercising and denial.
Right. Denial fits in everywhere.
And then it started to be like, okay, now I can't overeat. I can't undereat. This is the very beginning of junior year. I'm terrified of eating. I'm terrified of not eating enough. And I remember having a conversation with the nutritionist I had been working with when I told her I was going on Semester at Sea. And she was like, okay, so you're at a point right now where you can't eat anything that you didn't prepare yourself, that you don't know the calorie count of. And you're planning on getting on this ship and traveling the whole world. And you're not going to know anything that you're eating. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I plan on doing.
There's the denial.
Like I'm not going to let like my issues with food stop me from traveling the world. Like that was the commitment I made to myself. Right. But what I realized was I never had coping skills, period. I never had healthy coping skills.
Right.
And then I went on this ship, which was an amazing experience, but I had no coping skills.
So I want to say something about this. So what's really, to me, really beautiful about the way Lisa's laying out this story, and she doesn't even mean to, but she everyone falls right into my trap, is that what she's saying is, and what so many of us do, is we take pride in our human ability to rise above a situation, right? I mean, if you look at society, it is lauded, an ability to say, I have this thing and I'm going to do it anyway. And listen, I don't want anyone to lose that spirit because we need that spirit. But here is the problem. It takes a great deal of emotional repression by necessity to overcome something and do something anyway. You know, she did not let her previous issues dictate her this amazing experience that she was, invited to have. However, she didn't know that in tandem with that great human strength, you also need a vehicle by which to not repress your emotions, which is what Journal Speak is, which is what all this work is. So neither of us is saying to you here, don't go on your proverbial semester at sea because you have your proverbial food issues. We're saying do all the things, but know that you need this extra tool in your toolkit, or your emotions that are being repressed out of necessity, out of survival, are going to have to be expressed somewhere. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like because everybody on the boat gets sick, because the culture of semester at sea is having diarrhea is not shameful. We all get it. That was an opening in Lisa's system to say, this is what we're giving you, and this one's going to take. Mm-hmm. And it did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Was that's where it all started. And it became really clear to me then that, okay, so I never actually had a healthy way of coping with anything. My only coping mechanisms were now removed. Mm-hmm. And then I went on this experience that was, even if I had all the coping skills in the world, would have been challenging emotionally.
Yes.
So then I started to ask myself the question, like, where did you think it all went emotionally? Like, where did you really? Because then I have now, like, the time that goes by, the last 4 or 5 years, really have such an appreciation for things I can't see. The invisible, the psychological, the spiritual, energy, vibes.
Right.
Like all the things that my left brain doesn't concretize.
Right.
You know, like I have an appreciation for it. And so I started to ask myself, energetically, okay, everything is energy. So where did I think it all went? I had 18 years of not feeling anything. Mm. And then I had 4 months of just who even know, like I don't even know how to explain what semester at sea is like emotionally. And then I left, I went back to college, and all of a sudden I was in the ER because of my stomach.
Right.
And it was just like, this is not a physical thing.
But like, think about this, guys. Okay, think about this. How beautiful and perfect is Lisa's brain and nervous system that they gave her this symptom to focus on. Like, that's what you guys have to understand. This, your body is not against you. Your body is doing its best, maybe with some primitive defense mechanisms, in order to protect you. This is a girl who had never had a coping mechanism, who's being thrown into probably the most emotionally turbulent situation that a human being of her upbringing could see. And as a huge gift for her, she got this horrible IBS, so she'd have something to focus on, because the brain and the nervous system know that life is a choice between what hurts and what hurts worse. And the predator of her repressed emotions and her inability to process them was so much more dangerous than IBS that took her to the emergency room. Even though logically we all know that that's not true, your nervous system and your brain have no logic. You must act for them. Your willingness gives them the logic they need. And so actually, it's a sort of a lovely thing when your symptoms protect you from your feelings. However, as human beings, as sentient beings, we have a choice. And when we choose wellness, we must make that difficult choice to circumvent this very natural protective function. And so, I mean, isn't it weird to look back on it that actually you were being protected, right?
Yeah. And I think it's so funny because now this is really the work I help people with in regards specifically to eating and food, etc. And I'm huge on having people understand this is like your brain when you're struggling with really difficult emotions and it hits your amygdala, like you're feeling stress, and all stress is the same, you're in fight or flight, your brain thinks this is life or death.
Right.
And that's why we eat to cope. That's why we diet to cope. Like your brain thinks you're going to die. So I always frame it that way, even with myself, especially with myself, because one of the biggest things that I've gotten out of looking at this emotionally is that your body is only ever trying to survive.
Right.
The only thing your body is trying to do is protect you. And then emotions are just like too complex and difficult for the animal brain to understand. So it goes into fight or flight. It's life or death. But so how amazing is that your brain is always, 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 always trying to help you.
Yeah.
And then I started to think about, even when like we get a fever and it's like your body's trying to help you.
Yeah.
Even when you throw something up, your body's trying to help you. Like your body is only ever trying to help. And that I think is also huge from this whole experience, because I think about rolling around on the floor of my apartment senior year of college in pain and hating my body for it.
Yeah.
Like
not trusting your body.
Yeah, like my body is ruining my life. How many times did I say, like, my stomach is ruining my life? It's ruining my life. It's trying to save my life. Like that. And so that's what I walk around with now, is when this comes up, there's a love for it. Like, I get what you're doing. You're trying to get me better.
Right.
And like, I love you for that, and I appreciate you for that, versus like a constant fight against myself. So that's huge. And so now I have to talk about actually doing your work.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's,
At some point.
34 minutes into it, we're actually going to get to the solution, guys. So thanks for joining us and waiting this long. So I don't know the details of this other than you said, I think I should do the course, and I sent you the course. Yeah. So what's next?
So that was all the kind of thoughts and feelings that came before this. And so, yeah, after leaving Omega, I was like, all right, you know what, maybe, and this is the other thing about JournalSpeak, right? Like, okay, maybe it won't do anything. Maybe it won't. But maybe it will change everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's no, like, John Gabriel says this about, like, meditating. There's no negative side effect.
Right.
This isn't like a medication where you might go blind and you're going to try it anyway because you're in so much pain. This is like, just okay, maybe the absolute worst case scenario is that nothing happens.
Right.
And you're in the same boat.
Right.
So I kind of was like, all right, I have nothing to lose. And so that's when I asked for your course and I started it. And it's funny because at first I remember, what is the suggest within 30 days to do the whole thing? Well, I said
it's reasonable.
Reasonable.
Since it's 14 lessons, it's reasonable that you would get it done in 30 days.
So me being me was like, all right, if this goes into 31 days, like this, like I was I have to get this all done. And so I was really committed to, like, I did it over like winter break or like at some point where I was like, I can block the time out to make this happen. So I started doing it, and I don't know. So my IBS has like a few components. There's like, I'll just split it into two really, because it could honestly depend on the day. But there's like the internal kind of like, I don't know, I guess like gas and stuff.
Right.
I don't want to be too TMI about this, but like there's like the internal, but then the second kind of component that was always there was this feeling of like, I don't even want to use the word bloat, because I don't think it's bloat. It felt like inflammation.
It's a sensation. You know what? Listen, I think, first of all, if anyone has IBS out there, they're just nodding their head. You know, if you've lived through this, you know. And I've never, seen myself as a person with IBS, but I have gotten what I just have called stomach issues as TMS over the years. And I know what you mean. It's like a bloated feeling. People write to me about this all the time. It's a bloated feeling that feels like you're full of gas. But what's interesting about it is, when it subsides through doing the work, it's not like the gas has to go anywhere. No. So I think actually the way the symptom presents is less important than just saying you were in a lot of discomfort.
Yes, but I will explain why I split into two different symptoms, because, to be completely honest with everyone who's listening, this is still a thing. This is something that I'm working on. It's a work in progress. But, so I say that because that is mostly in regards to like the first symptom. But the second symptom of like feeling inflamed, that's really the best word for it, started to disappear within like that 30-day period. And that was the thing that was really the worst, because that was what felt to me like I could put on any of my favorite clothes and I just felt disgusting. Like I just felt gross all the time because of this like flame inside of me. Like that's what it felt like. So whereas the first kind of like day-to-day things are still something to work on, that is something that like throughout the online program that I did kind of disappeared, like even to this day. So even on my worst day now is still better than the best day. Like, am I saying that right?
Yeah, no. What you're saying is your worst day after starting the work is better than your best day before starting 100%. The work. And I think what people need to understand is that this is not about freeing yourself from all human sensation. You know, if we know that it is a very hard job for our systems to metabolize the amount of emotional stimuli we receive every day, because first of all, there's daily life, which is a total stress bucket of like whatever you're dealing with, money, spouse, kids, pets, parents, job, boss, whatever. then here's your personality, whatever personality you have. You know, Lisa and I are very similar, which is like really perfectionistic, wanting to achieve a lot, wanting to be seen as our best self, wanting to know that we're always going to the end of the earth. You know, that's not easy to be, okay? It's like sucks sometimes. And then there's your childhood stuff that's being triggered every day by both of those two other things. And so being human is a lot, okay, guys? Forgive yourself. Being human is a lot. And so because being human is a lot, sometimes our bodies are going to feel some of that as a physical symptom. On some days I have a headache and I'm like, okay, I have a headache today. Maybe I'll take an Advil, maybe not. Maybe I'll lay down, maybe not. But all I have to do is accept, God, I'm feeling a lot right now. I'm going to get to my journal speak when I can, but today might be a headache day. Just like some days you might feel some discomfort in your stomach right now as you're working through this. It's okay. You know, what I love to hear, though, is when people understand that this work is possible and they do it, that they do see a transformation. Lisa does have a very different way of experiencing her stomach now. So talk a little bit about doing the work, actually.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I first started doing it, so like I said, I always was a writer and I was always comfortable with journaling, like feeling journaling. So that was another reason I was like, all right, I could do this thing. I could write for 20 minutes a day. But then when it came to the art, like drawing, I've never been an artist. And I knew this wasn't like to look good or anything, but I remember like pulling out the pencils and all the stuff and kind of just being like, I don't think this is going to like do it for me. Like the writing, yeah, but the art, I don't know.
So let me explain to people, if you haven't taken the course, there's one exercise early on in the course. Is it the second day?
I think it's 2 exercises.
There's 2, but
you draw
there's
twice.
2 different ones. Yeah,
Okay,
there's 2
okay,
different
okay.
ones. But the first one is the one I'm thinking of because it was
Yeah.
probably the first time that you had to pull out the whatever. Is that it's inviting you to actually make a physical representation on paper of your pain. And so that's what Lisa's describing. And I think it's a really powerful exercise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I went into it being like, this is probably the only part that won't super resonate or whatever. But it's the one part that really sticks with me the most. That what I found when I drew it, and to be honest, I don't think I spent 20 minutes on it. I think I spent like a few minutes, and then I connected this, and I was like, just whoa. And then I think I stared at it for like the last 5 minutes. Right? But what it was the drawing, like I said, there was like 2 parts of it, but one part was like I kept drawing like red, orange, yellow, like inflamed. And at some point, I just felt this like aha. And what I noticed was it's a red flag. Like that's what came to me. It was like, this is a red flag.
Right.
That there's all this stuff in here. And for whatever reason, like it was just one of those that, you know, like you feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
Like this is it. This is
Yeah.
what I was supposed to see. And that's what stuck with me when I did it. And then that's the part that I don't struggle with anymore.
Right. The inflammation
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
So that was insane to me. But then also like it happened, I don't know, there were 16 lessons. This is probably 14. It probably happened like consistently 5 or 6, maybe 10 times, honestly, where and this is just for me, like I know everyone's going to experience this differently, but I would write for 15 minutes nonsense. Like I don't even know what was coming out. And then in minute like 15, 16, or 17, this like major aha moment.
That happens to me all the time. And that's why people say to me, you know what, I really don't like 20 minutes, so I'm going to do 5 minutes a few times a day. And I'm like, no, you need to push yourself. You need to sit in the discomfort and let your brain release what you need to know. And sometimes you have to do, I just have to do a shout out to my friend Susanna. She has this... I'm going to say a bad word. Okay, so everyone ready, because I know people write to me sometimes. They don't like my bad words, but I'm sorry. I need them sometimes. My friend Susanna says this is what meditation is for her, okay? It's 19 minutes of fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And then it's 1 minute of, And that's what it reminds me of, what you're saying. Yeah. Like sometimes you just have to sit with that I don't know where this is going. And then there's this revelatory feeling that washes over your whole body. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Where you know you're healing.
Yeah. And that happened like really almost every time. Yeah. I never hit anything before 10 minutes easily. Like, because I think, again, for people like us, like very like, I'm going to do this the right way, right? Like, I'm going to, and there were parts of me too that were like, all right, it's been 12 minutes. Like, where's the epiphany? And then, like, and so I would move through it that way. But the things that stuck, like the things that happened within that online program have stuck. Like, that was a thing that needed to happen. That's an association I needed to make. That's a thought I had to have, that like whatever it was. And yeah, I mean, this is something I tell my clients all the time is about, I mean, I talk about journal speak all the time because it's huge. And I think what I hope everyone knows, not just the people with chronic pain, but literally anyone, everyone should be doing this.
Yes.
Every single person should be doing this because everyone has a personality, has a childhood. Like everyone, everyone has this going on some level. And even if it's not physical symptoms, it's something. I can tell you, like dieting. Oh my God. How many people just need to channel it into an emotional outlet and stop using a physical one? Mm-hmm. I see it all the time.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I see this to people a lot. If you want to feel better, you can. Yeah. There's, and just like Lisa said, everyone wants to feel better. Just like everyone had a childhood and everyone has a personality, I guarantee you could play this podcast for 1 million people and 1 million of them would raise their hand and be like, I want to feel better, because we're uncomfortable, because being human is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this is a solution for that discomfort, because then you don't have to spend all that energy repressing whatever you've been repressing, and you have so much more. You said lately, and this is me too, you've become more comfortable with the things you can't see. Mm-hmm. Your spiritual journey, energy, love. Yeah. The things that are the realest things. Yeah. We think that our matter, our human form is the most real things. Study Einstein. Right. I mean, it's not. We're like 98% energy. And so, this shit matters. It matters so deeply. So, okay. So I'm going to do an intro to this after, which you will have already heard, that I'm going to talk about the fact that Lisa and I are going to be at Omega. But I want you to know that this brilliant woman in front of me is going to be joining us for the whole week. And just kind of in closing, is there anything that you want to say that you're going to bring to the retreat that might help people understand that this is for them too?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you asked, because I have so many things on my mind, but I think the number one thing, and maybe this is just because I think about it a lot, I see it with my own clients a lot, but this idea that you are 5 years old.
Yeah. You
are emotionally 5 years old. And I said this to a client the other day, like, if you think about, your body has changed a lot since you were 5, but the emotion, the sadness that you feel today at 40, is that any different than the sadness you felt when you were 5 years old? Like, emotionally, we're 5. Or younger,
Right.
So I think just that idea, if everyone took a few minutes a day to ask the 5-year-old, how do you really feel?
Right.
Like
so
instead of this, like, the adult version of you, and I think of you all the time when I say this stuff, because it's like the adult version is saying, oh, it's not that bad. I know that he didn't mean it that way. I really like it most of the time. Like, whatever. I don't, your 5-year-old doesn't know that.
No.
Your 5-year-old does not care.
Your 5-year-old just took that person, kicked them in the leg, and ran out of the room crying.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I encourage literally as many people as I can to have a conversation with the 5-year-old, because that's where your answers lie. Like, that's where the real capital T truth is with a 5-year-old inside of you. I love what John Gabriel said when he was talking about his own experience with this. Like, when him and his family got off a flight, I use this metaphor all the time. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Him and his family were flying from New Zealand to New York, so forever.
Yeah.
and he got off the plane with his 2-year-old. And then they had to wait on the line at customs at the airport.
Yeah, forever.
And his 2-year-old was on the ground throwing a tantrum, like screaming and crying. And John was like, I feel that way.
Right.
Everyone on the line, everyone on the flight feels that way, but we're adults. So we can't throw a temper tantrum. We can't scream and cry. We have to stand online and be civilized. But the point is that every single person has that 2-year-old that wants to scream and cry, but can't.
And is.
And is. But can't.
And because, one thing I say often in my work and in my writings is, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it still make a sound? And I say, absolutely yes, it makes a sound. So that tree in every one of those people online is falling. And that falling is, I hate this. I don't want to be here. I'm too tired for this. I want to scream. I want to cry too. I want to shove everyone and cut in front of everyone. I want to be first. I want to be the only one. And that's what that tree falls. Boom, boom, boom. And we can't get on the ground and cry, and we can't elbow everybody else out of the way. And so what do? We sit quietly. And is it making a sound? Yes, it is. It's making a sound in our gut, in our heads, in our fibro all over our bodies. Our knee starts to ache, our back starts to ache, our shoulder starts to ache. We think, oh, it's the heavy bag on my shoulder. No, it isn't. It's that tree falling in the forest. And because when you set the bag on the ground and your shoulder's still hurting, this is what's happening. And so I think that is a really perfect metaphor. And go ahead.
Sorry, and like, just to pitch literally what I do, it's not only chronic pain, it's your relationship with food. Like, that's the thing. It's like, for me, trees were falling all the time, and the way I dealt was eating or dieting.
Right.
And so it's also like, for anyone who's listening to this that has a relationship to food that they can't completely understand, or is frustrating or confusing or whatever, if you then start to think of it this way, this emotional, psychological perspective of what trees are falling for you, and how comfortable, like, how much comfort do you get from eating or from not eating? Because that's the other thing, is if it's not IBS, if it's not a physical symptom, is it a relationship to a substance or a behavior, or something like that?
And this does cover everyone. And I will say that a lot of the emails I've been getting lately have not been the more classic, my back hurts, or, my head hurts. It's been stuff like this. Yeah. Nicole, do you ever deal with body dysmorphia, or relations up? I just got an email about it yesterday. And so I hope you're listening, email person, because people email me all the time, and I write everyone back. I really try. I hope I do. But yeah, I mean, this has been a question that I've been receiving a lot. And so, guys, if you can join us at Omega, all the information is everywhere. I'm always telling people where to find it. Lisa will be there all week helping me run the show. And and in closing, any closing thoughts for our viewers?
Do you have another hour?
Except for a million?
Not really. I think if I could say anything, it would be suspend your disbelief. Yeah. Just completely. And I think...
make a decision to be willing.
Yeah. And there's no... as one of my professors said recently, there is no cure for the human condition.
Right.
Like, ultimately, there is pain. If you're a human, there is pain. And if you're not addressing it, it's somewhere.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere.
Somewhere. All right, well.
On that high note.
Lisa Schlosberg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And until next time, guys, this has been The Cure for Chronic Pain with Nicole Sachs. Have a wonderful week. Bye.